All right, guys, I gotta say, yeah, this whole holiday thing really messed me up. So, my husband gets every Friday off. He works 4 10-hour days. So, on weeks like this, where Friday is both a day off and a holiday, he gets Thursdays off. And it messes me up every time. Totally spaced recording on Wednesday. See what I mean? I don't even have my days right. What day is it? Squirrel? No. So, needless to say, this didn't go up yesterday like it was supposed to, but we're doing it now. We're doing it late, and I don't care. Read Love Journal, Cathryn, tagged me in a book blessings tag that I'm going to do here in a minute. But before I do that, in my last wrap up, I talked about Murder Your Employer and my problems with it, and about Meet Me at the Museum and my problems with it. And I gave both of them high ratings, and they both might change in kind of opposite directions. So Murder Your Employer, I was in the shower, shocker, right? And it just, a line from, is it Little Town on the Prairie or The Long Winter? I think it's The Long Winter. A line, yeah, it is. There's that whole scene where Laura, there's just trouble in the school. Miss Wilder has no control over the kids, and a couple of boys are really acting up, and Laura smiles at them, and it just kind of encourages them, and things get completely out of control. And later she's reflecting on this, and she realizes that this whole thing, this whole chain of events kind of got flamed. It wasn't sparked. The spark was already there, but it kind of got inflamed by what she called twice smiled at naughtiness. I remember that line very vividly, because even as a kid, I was like, that's pretty insightful. And, it really made an impact on me, because I always think of it whenever something comes along where I'm amused by something wrong. And I was in the shower, and it came to me just about the same time I was thinking about that book, because I've been struggling with Murder Your Employer, The McMaster's Guide to Homicide, whatever. I've really been struggling with that whole book, because there's this part of me that says, you shouldn't like this. And I kept thinking it was about the murder part, but I don't think that's it. Don't get me wrong. In a sense, this is vigilante justice, and that is wrong. But it's a murder mystery, except that the murderer. What you need, the mystery is, can they pull it off? And so it's twisted that way. But I could even swallow that, because I went into it knowing that this is what it was. And as much as I disagree with it, they don't actually pretend it's okay, which is kind of interesting, because there's also this weird moral code about, well, we got to make sure we're not just willy-nilly offing people. I mean, it's just so bizarre. But what I found most fascinating in that book at the time, I was really impressed, and I still am, sort of. It was the completely clever. It wasn't gratuitous. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't too much. It was a very subtle, just kind of drop. It's like my son's humor. He has the driest humor. We're all talking, we're all laughing. He'll say something in the middle of it all, and we're still talking, and all of a sudden we all just get quiet. We look at him, we bust up, because he will drop something hilarious and act like he hasn't said a word. He just waits for it, and it comes, And that's kind of what they did with this. They used F in a totally nonchalant way, but because they used it in conjunction with being a eunuch, it was clever, and I was so impressed by how clever that was. That's what's wrong with that book. And that's what took, I think I gave that thing 4 stars, just because it was, even with the flat characters, it was pretty impressive. It was a riveting story for the most part. It's going down to 3, probably 2. Because you know what? That book, that's really insidious. That book got me to chuckle at something that I find revolting. And I missed it. I mean, I knew it on the open levelness of it. I mean, I knew I was finding this clever and that, this was, but I missed how insidious it was, that I was impressed by the way they were able to do without making it just, a throwaway word. On top of all of that, the problem is it wasn't necessary. It wasn't gratuitous in the sense that it's just flinging words around to be having foul words flung in there, but it wasn't necessary to the plot. I really feel like the author threw something in and went, wait a minute, and backed up and thought, if I do this instead of that, then it's hilarious. I mean, I think he was going to call someone a eunuch anyway, but he threw that adjective in because then it makes it ironic and hilarious, which is clever. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't necessary to the story. You heard me, you saw me. Well, maybe you didn't, and bless your heart, you don't want to see it. But I was really struggling over that. And it obviously, for the last 9 days or so, I've still been struggling over it. And now I know why. Because that phrase, because of how cleverly it was done, it made me smile at naughtiness. So that book is getting, I was going to reread it. Remember, I said I was going to reread it, and I wanted to see it with I was impressed. I was like, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, no, the book is going. I'm not even going to give it to my mom. It's going. It's out of here. Similarly, the whole thing, the trouble I had with Meet Me at the Museum, where they're dealing with an emotional affair. Now that is over, and I don't know how many minutes I've already been talking. I got stacks of books. I kind of overdid it on one of these prompts. Hi, how you doing? But I didn't realize I did till I got in here. So then I started going, well, which one can I pull off? There's a couple I can just mention and move along, and there's some others I really want to talk about. So what I did, I have to say up front, what I did on these, I tried to choose ones that fit the prompts, but that I haven't already showed a lot. So, like, one of the prompts are life-changing books. Yeah, I chose life-changing books that really had a huge impact on my life that I haven't shown on here a lot. Because I could bring back Michael Phillips' Secret of the Rose series. I could bring back Sensible Shoes. I could bring back, there's a lot I could, but I've already talked about them a lot. So I tried to look for things that were a little different and weren't ones that we've already really discussed. So there's that. So up front, this is the Count Your Blessings in Books tag. And I think the original, it was In Search of Wonder. I'm trying to remember her name. I don't remember her name. Sorry. So there's that. But we're gonna start off with number 1. It is Count Your Blessings, and the one by one. Okay, so here's the deal. I did not recount my books. Just did this a couple months ago. It's been since June since I've done this. I've gotten quite a few books since then. You've seen that. So when I counted, I did not count any of my personal, like my stock, because I didn't think that doesn't make sense. And it changes. Anytime I get an order, I've got to ship out that book. So all of my personal books that I've written, those are over there. I did not count those. I also did not count books that are, there are quite a few books. Some of the ones I keep saying, where is my book? I figured it out. Some of those are there's a closet in my mom's room that has a ton of my son's stuff. And, he moved out years ago, but it's still in there. And so in that as well, though, there are some bookshelves in there that used to house a lot of my other books. And so there's books in there. I don't know how many there are. I'm going to guess there's a minimum of 50 books in there. That's a guess. I have no idea if I'm right. but I can't imagine any less, that because you can fit a lot of books on one shelf, and there are several shelves, and they're way wider than that. So, you know, there's that. And I also, at that time, did not count the books that are in our room, which now are in the escape room. I gotta remember what I'm calling this thing. You know, so I just like, no. I didn't count those. I didn't count the new ones because I didn't want to do it again. So at the time I counted all that with minus those things, it was just under 1,500 books. It was over 1,400. I feel like it was over 1,450. So that's a lot of books, but I think at this point I've got to at least be 2, if not over 1,500 books, because I have no doubt. I've gotten rid of a lot, but I also have no doubt that I've gotten more than I've gotten rid of. It's a thing. Hi, how you doing? So, count your blessings. I'm going to say approximately 1,500. I'm not counting. That took forever last time. I'm not doing it again. All right. Got to get my stack. So, it's this is life-changing books. What are some books that changed or impacted your life in a positive way? Now, here's the deal. I do need to, like, I feel like I need a caveat here, because I really feel like we bring to books based on what else we've read, based on what we've been studying in the Bible, what we know from the Bible. All those things are personal experiences. We bring them to the reading experience. And so a book that is kind of fluffy, even, like there was the Secret Life of Book Club, that one by Heather Woodhaven, I think. Yeah, by Heather Woodhaven. That book, I got so much out of that book. And when I was talking to the author and we were talking about it, she's like, I don't know where you got that. And it's because of where I was. And it's why when I write a book, what I am understanding and learning and experiencing goes into it, but what someone else gets out of it has to do with theirs, and those things may look very, very different. So when I say these things were life-changing or impactful, there's very specific reasons, even though I may not even think that they're all that great. But I brought them in because I'm like, these things had an impact on me. So without I'm not going in any order. They're just stacked up, and I'm just gonna go from the stack. So one of them was God Came Near. This is a really fluffy little book by Max Lucado. It's there's not a lot of, frankly, a lot of depth in this, but that's not why this was impactful. I don't want to say it's life-changing, but definitely impactful, because what this book did for me personally was humanize Jesus. You know, it's like we know he's God. And because we know he's God, we forget that he was also fully human. So I forget that his feet got sore and calloused and cracked. I forget that he got sweaty and that he got tired and he got the flu. You know, I mean, all those things. And so there's one thing in here that's 25 questions for Mary. And the one I remember, there's so many, you know, did you ever try to count the stars with him and succeed? How did he feel when he saw a prostitute offering to the highest biddy the body that he created? Did you ever see him pensively looking at a handful of dirt, you know? But the one that just really sinks in was, did you ever think that's God eating my soup? And that line in particular, that's what I remember from this. And then Margin by Richard Swenson, this book, there's one line from this book that I remember so clearly. And it said, you can't try to be all things to all men, all at once, all the time, all by yourself. That's like Shatona's motto. I'm still learning this, but it made a huge impact on me, because I was like, yeah, margin. And this book kind of just reminds you that your life needs margin too. And that is something that Shatona isn't good at. So yeah, that book was definitely Pansy, who is Isabella Alden, is also her name. Pansy was Grace Livingston Hill's aunt, and she wrote a lot of book under the name Pansy. A lot of book? Yeah, a lot of, I am unable to can. But she wrote a lot of books under the name of Pansy, and this one is Aunt Hannah, Martha, and John. And Aunt Hannah is really, really, really a wise woman. There's a lot of great lessons in this book on contentment, on wise use of resources, and on relationships. Martha and John, if I recall correctly, are married. This isn't a romance, which is another reason I tend to prefer her over Grace Livingston Hill, because most of hers aren't really romantic. And so, there's that. But this one had a huge impact, particularly on contentment. And now that I'm talking about it, I want to read more. So there's that one. I'm trying to not drop stuff everywhere. Equally, An Old-Fashioned Girl by Louisa May Alcott. I love Little Women. I absolutely love Little Women. But I might love this one more. Except this one's a little preachier. But there's something super sweet. What is her name? I can't even remember her name. What's the girl's name? Polly. Yeah, Polly. Okay, so Polly is, I don't remember if she's a cousin or a friend. It's been a long time since I've read it. But Polly arrives to spend time with a much wealthier family. She's a simple girl. And for a little while, she kind of gets her head turned by all the things. But she discovers she doesn't like the falseness that is creeping in. And so she starts to pull back and get some real principles again. And then I'm trying to remember, is it the family's grandmother? I think it's a grandmother in the family, but I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been a really long time since I've read it. I need to reread it. My daughter, Shalice, just reread it, and I should have asked her before she's asleep. I should leave her alone. But look at this. This is so pretty. I love the end plates. It's just like, I think the back is identical. Yeah. And I don't think there are any illustrations in this one. Oh, there might be one. Hold on. There might be one. Yes, there is the one. But anyway, there's just so many good, really good lessons in here on just doing the right thing. And it's not just for young girls, it's for anyone. And so, yeah, I also need to reread that. I think I wonder if January, that might be a fun juxtaposition, is if I turned January into kind of a reread month. You got all the new and the fresh and everything. It's like, well, why not balance that? Maybe, we'll see. So then there's two more. I could do this all day. Lots of books, but I chose just these. Though None Go With Me. This is a hard book. This is like the Cranford of Christian fiction, except without the humor. Because in this book, it's like Job, but a woman in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I mean, this is a really hard book, but it is so good. And to watch this girl go from a rather shallow, self-centered existence to a true life-changing faith, and how she lives that out. It is beautiful, but it is not an easy book. But it definitely had an enormous impact. And then last year I read Adorning the Dark, last April or something like that, maybe March. I really need to start learning to date the books when I read them. I really want to change that. I can find out on Goodreads and then I could date it. But this book, I needed this book, and I read it before I knew I needed it. I was in some serious burnout and didn't know it. And this book both opened my eyes to it and started healing it at the same time. Just that idea that everything we do, and it's written for, supposedly for, quote, creatives, but he doesn't like to do that. It's got an emphasis on the creative process, but I think this book is for anyone, and Andrew Peterson does too. This book is the book that I'd never heard of him I'd heard of him as an author. The Wing Feather Saga, I read those, loved them, but I didn't know anything about him as a songwriter. I didn't know that was his shtick, but he mentioned Is He Worthy in here. So I was like, I'm going to go listen to this. I don't like most contemporary music, period. So the fact that I don't like contemporary Christian music, yes, it makes me a terrible Christian in some ways. I'm fine with that. I like old hymns, and I don't even like all of those because a lot of those are fluffy too. I'm an old soul, okay? So I did not expect to like that song. I love Is He Worthy? That song, I will try to link it in the description. That song, oh my gravy, is it good. It is so good. So, like, we're going through Revelation in church right now, and it plays on repeat. So anyway, that one was definitely hugely impactful, and to a small degree, definitely life-changing. Okay, do I have them all? I could have said things like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, The Cost of Discipleship, like the Sensible Shoes books, like I mentioned. There's so many I could, but either I've already mentioned them recently, or the stack was getting too high, so I just said done, and I walked away. So there's that. All right, next up were special editions, and that's what I have the most of. And it says, what are some editions or copies that you really love? First editions, cloth, hardback, signed, whatever. Okay, so, The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goudge. So my friend Anne was talking with me about this book, and then she showed me her copy that is like this. Isn't it beautiful? It's so beautiful. And it's got a lovely map inside. Let me get that out of the way. So, it's a beautiful book. And I wonder if I can find the beginning, there are illustrations, but there are also some big ones. And then I thought there were some colored ones. Oh, yes, there are. So, isn't that beautiful? So anyway, when Anne showed me her copy of this book, I was like, you know what? I love that. I'm buying that. So I went on eBay and I found one. I love the slipcase. Yes, I do. But I mostly it's just, and it feels so good in the hand. So that's a special edition for me. It was very hard to find. It's Lion. It's from the UK. You want the slipcase. You gotta like search for the right stuff, or you end up with the wrong one. I found this one at an antique store in Kernville. It is Heart Songs, and it's just that. It's Melodies of Days Gone By. Okay, think about how old this book is, and they're calling it Melodies of Days Gone By. Let me see if I can find the publication date. It's got an Helen B. Dawson, Brooklyn, New York. And the copyright on this, 1909. That's the year my grandma was born. So, Heart Songs is more than a collection of music. It is a book compiled directly by 20,000 people who not only sent in their favorite songs, but in accompanying letters told how the songs have been interwoven into the story of their own lives. All have been sent by men and women who loved them, who cared little for the prizes, but desired to have a truly worthy contribution to the collection of heart songs. So there's a whole lot, which is all that I can say. Song of a Thousand Years, Homeward Bound. Brother, Tell Me of the Battle. Well, that's going to be heartbreaking. How the soldiers fought and fell. Tell me of the weary marshes. She who loves will listen well. Brother, draw thee close beside me. Lay your head upon my breast. While you're telling of the battle, let your fevered forehead rest. Flow gently, sweet Afton. I know that one. Take me home to the evening star. Sweet Genevieve. Oh, Genevieve, sweet Genevieve. I know that one. Wait a minute. How gentle God's commands. Gentle's God's commands, how kind his precepts are. Come cast your burdens on the Lord and trust his constant care. Beneath his watchful eye, his saints securely dwell. That hand which bears creation up shall guard his children well. And so on. I mean, there's just, buy a broom, drink to me only with thine eyes. There are pictures of people in here. So it's super cool. I bought it because I really wanted, I write these historical fiction and I'm always looking for a song that fits. So I decided this is kind of a research book, and just because I love music, yeah, it's a me. So I had forgotten how cool that is. And then I don't remember where I found this, but I know oh yes, I do remember. I do remember where I found this. I bought this, I bought this for, okay, I don't want to say the wrong one, but there's a gal on Instagram who sells used, sometimes older books, other times just a paperback. I bought both from her at different times. But she had this Courtship of Miles Standish. And I decided I wanted it. I think I paid like $8 for it. But it's Longfellow. I mean, it's got just beautiful illustrations. And so, Sailing of the Mayflower, Priscilla. Oh, look at that. So anyway, that's obviously definitely one of my favorites. A very special edition for me. Because I love poetry. I've always thought the Miles Standish thing was kind of a cool thing. I loved the reference to it in the Harvey Girls when she's describing all of that. This book, Casella, isn't that beautiful? This book was crazy expensive. I didn't pay for it what you have to find this book. It actually, check this out. This book has actually had bookworms attack it. It has the little holes. But this book is so hard to find. My friend, the first one she found was falling apart. I mean, there was no cover. There was no cover, and it was just, but it was so hard to find that we went ahead and we split the cost of it. It was almost $200. But we wanted to read the book so bad. It's about, okay, I had to make sure. Okay, so the story is about the Waldensians in, are they in France or in, I don't remember where they are, in Switzerland. Can't remember, but they went through a lot. They had a whole lot of persecution, a lot like the Huguenots. They had a whole lot of persecution, and this story, it was so good. I can't even remember all that happened. I just remember going, I have it so easy. My faith just has never been tried and tested, if you will, like these people. And I can learn from them and I can grow from them. So, and when I found this copy, I think I probably paid $50 for it, and it's not a good copy. And I mean, it's, the binding is tight. It is tight, but it is, it has been chewed on a bit. There's a little bit of foxing on the pages, but it's not too bad. But it's a way better, oh, dust, but it's a way better copy than the first one we bought. That first one we bought, but we wanted to read it so bad that we were willing to spend the money. We were really glad when we found other copies. I think my friend found hers first, and then when the next one came up, I snagged that one. But so yeah, that's one of my definitely prized possessions. And another one I probably should read again. Okay, and then these I just love because I love the stories, but B, I love the covers. I think the covers are so cute, and I would love to get a matching one for that. So my Daddy Long Legs, this is mine, and I have it in paperback too, but it has all of the illustrations that the original had, because this is one that has a popsicle stick in it. Because reasons. Somebody clearly was reading and just grabbed the nearest thing. I think looks like a craft stick as opposed to true popsicle. It doesn't look like it's ever had any food dye on it, which is good because now I don't have to get irritated. But I don't think, this actually says 1913. The original copyright was 1912. Okay. Because I'm like, I didn't think this was the original. And so that was really throwing me. And now I know why, because it wasn't. Okay. I love the dedication. It says, to you. I think that's sweet. For those who don't know, Daddy Longlegs, Mark Twain was actually highly instrumental in getting this book published and getting her to do this. So there's that. And then second to that is the sequel, which if you look at the difference, it's a much bigger book. I wonder how the font. If anything, this typeface is spread out a bit more and possibly slightly larger. So this book is definitely a whole lot thicker. This book is also epistolary. They're both epistolary. But this also has the super cute illustrations. But I love that cover. Look at that cover. Isn't that just beautiful? It's plaid, because plaid. And there is a Scots doctor in here. So 1916, and this was 1915. So yeah, this is not first either, which I don't really care about, but you know. I love this book. This book is hilarious, and their whole arguments over the Kallikaks, and if you don't know who the Kallikaks were, they were a murderous family, and they're like, is you just born with a gene? They're spending so much time just arguing, her and this doctor, and it's really funny, and I just love it. So those are some of my favorite editions. All right. And then gifted books. The funny thing is when you're an author, especially, but I think also as a bibliophile, I think people don't buy me books mostly because they know that when I want something, I already have it. But also, once I started writing, it's like people are afraid to give you books. I don't know. So I don't really get books as gifts very often. But I do have 4. They're the only 4 that I could find. That's not to say that they're the only 4 I've ever been given. That's not true. Or that I've even been given in the last few years. That's not necessarily true. But they are the only 4 that I could find. So there's that. I keep looking. It's like, is there more? There's got to be more. But no, I don't know. So anywho, the first one, my daughter Shalise gave me Woman of the Word, Women of the Word, by Jen Wilkin, and I let it sit for about a year, and then I started reading it a couple Decembers ago, and yeah, I clearly loved it. I filled out an entire journal full of notes on it, and it has definitely impacted how I study the Word. Highly recommend it. Every man, woman, and child needs to read it because it's not really just for women, in my not so humble opinion. So I'm going to move that down here because this one should go below that. So next up is Eleni by Nicholas Gage. This isn't a true story in the sense that it is an actual memoir or an actual biography. But it is a true story in that this guy lived this, and where his memory was, is trying to fill in what happened where he didn't remember or didn't know. He made sure that he had at least 2 people who could verify that what the story he had that went there was correct. So it's almost like history told in novel fashion, and yet this is a hard book, guys. I'm telling you, this is a tough book to read, but it is so good. And it really, my Greek friend gave me this because, it's about Greece, particularly in World War II, at village life. And it really showed how really hard it was. And, I knew that like in Athens, people were starving in Athens, but I didn't realize it extended to the countryside, because at the same time that they were fighting the Nazis and the Nazis were coming in and taking over, the communists were also trying to take over. And there was so much going on at that time that people were starving, terrible things were happening. And so this is a tough book to read, but it is so good. And it was really... I have the next one, and I'm not ready to read it yet because it took a lot out of me, but it was so good. And I'm glad to understand my friend's country's history more and all that. I'm really glad that I've read it and that I understand her, her history. So there was that one, and I value that a whole lot. And then when we were in England, I mentioned this before. No, I showed this one, I think. Or did I show the other one? I don't know. I don't know if I've shown this before. My friend gave me, when we were at Hawkshead, I was at the little Baptist prayer garden, and they were walking around, and they found this church that had, they had like a church library, I think, but they also had like books you could buy. You leave a donation, it's, whatever. And so she got me this little book of common prayer. So this came from England, and I've actually been using it this month. So I think I showed you this one instead of this one that I bought. So yeah. And they are different. I said I wanted to compare them. I have seen some differences. The primary difference that I saw right away is that this one references King Edward VI. So clearly much older, like 1922, I think was when this was. And this one is referencing Queen Elizabeth II. So, but yeah, this is treasured because it's from my friend Anne. So anyway, there's gifted books. And then the blessing of a book. How has reading benefited you in your life, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Okay. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Mentally, reading does keep me from going insane. I feel like my sleeves are short. But it really helps me. Reading has always helped me process things. Okay, so for example, math. I was in the Accelerated Christian Education program when I was a kid. So there were little workbooks. They were called PACES. And you did 12 of them per subject per year. And that constituted a year. If you did 15, you could do 15. That was fine. But you had to do 12 a year to complete a year's worth of work. Well, in those things, you read your lesson on how to do stuff. And then they give you some sample problems. And you work those problems. And you do a few pages of that. Then they'll give you word problems. I was the weird kid where I would read the lesson, and then I would go read those word problems, try to do those word problems. I go read the lesson again, and because I had done those word problems and I had kind of seen how it worked in practicality, then I could do the other math. Math I loved, but I was not good at. It didn't come naturally for me. I had to really work at it. But reading the word problems helped me understand math. And that's pretty much like what reading does. It helps me understand life. I read Christian fiction to see how other people understand scripture, or how they apply scripture in their life, or how they should apply. I'll be going, why aren't you what the word says? And what? Well, that's what it does for me. It helps me see where I might not be doing that in my own life. So particularly with Christian fiction, that's definitely a thing. But number 6, friends, the greatest blessing. Do you have any in real life friends that love to talk books with you? And it says to give them a shout out. Well, I have a few. Most of the people I know, I actually know online. Most of the readers I know that I could talk books with are online. But I do know there are a few. My daughter, I'll get to her in a minute. But there's a local gal, Teresa, and I, we have shared books for years. I actually met her in a Christian bookstore. It's funny, she had seen my husband and I at the homeschool conference, the big one that we have down south. It's about a 3-hour drive. And she had actually seen us down there, so she knew we were from here. When she saw me in the local Christian bookstore, she asked if I knew if a particular book was good. And I was like, actually, I don't like that one. I would recommend that one. And it just kind of, I've known her. That was before 1993. It was before 93. She saw us in 90 at that conference. And then before 93, because she knew me most of my pregnancy in 92, and the baby was born in February. So actually, she attended that birth. We had that baby at home and she was here. So there's that. But no, we've talked about books for years, and she has been there with the first book I wrote. We went to a local restaurant that we both love with another friend or two, and we had a book signing and just, celebrated and had a lot of fun. But so we've talked a lot about books over the years. We do read mostly the same. We do like mostly the same things, but I know she reads a lot more Amish than I do. And, I read a lot wider. Of course, I read more than just Christian fiction. And I think she pretty much reads Christian fiction, but she's the one that we both did the Casella and all those. So, yeah, she's got like 6 sets of the original Elsie Dinsmore by the same author. She's got 6 original sets, and she's trying to sell all her books. She's like bought way too many, right? So now she's trying to sell all her books. So if you know anyone who's looking for original Pansy, Martha Finley, Horatio Algiers, Oliver Optic, Henty, Nina Rhodes, well, I can set you up with someone because she's got them all. But then also my friend Sandy. She and I, we talk books all the time. She runs a publicity company that does blog tours for books and things. So, we've talked a lot about books that, have been on tour, and we've discussed and everything. So Sandy and I talk a lot. And even if one or the other of us haven't read a book, we listen and talk about the others. As a matter of fact, I think we're about ready to start doing the 12 Days of Christmas. We always talk Christmas books. I think we're doing that pretty soon. So we'll be chatting about Christmas books. So, there's Sandy. And then obviously my daughter Shalise from And Read Another Shalise from And Read Another Chapter. She and I have talked books since she was a kid. And so we're constantly, chatting about this book or that book, and, what do you think here or there? I know she's waiting for me to read a few books so that we can chat. One of them being The String, and one of them being Iscariot by Tosca Lee. I can't remember. I think there's another one or two that she's waiting on me for, so I probably need to get to those pretty soon. But yeah, so we chat a lot. So I do have really good book friends, but as in real life, I have a lot of friends online, but if they all lived in my town, I wouldn't spend lots of time with all of them. As much as I love it, I'm too much of an introvert, so I tend to have few friends in person and spend very little time with them. It's just how I am. I'm sorry. It's kind of rude, but it's true. So there's that. And then it says to tag your favorite booktube channels. I'm not going to do that because I'm one of those people that if you tag me and I can't do it, I'll be like, oh, that's too bad. But I know that some people kind of feel like obligated. Well, just go ahead and knock the camera around, Toothless. They kind of feel obligated. I don't want to do that to you, so I'm not going to. But I do hope that people will do this because this was kind of fun, and I love, hearing about other people and their books and all the fun stuff in this. So I'm hoping that there will be more people who will do the tag because it's fun. And I have talked way too long, so I'm going to go, and I will I'll chat with you on Monday about something. Possibly the books that I wanted to talk about, but not quite done reading these right now. Book of Common Prayer, I'm just doing daily. These poems and prayers by Googe. I'm doing well. I'm about halfway done with Matthew 24 fulfilled, and it's clean. I'm over halfway done with Fox. That's the one I'm over halfway done with. Really loving all of them so far. And I just started a Moonberry Lake tonight. So hopefully by Monday, we will have more of those done. Because right now, all I have over there, I have 3 over there. I just flunked something in my eye. I have 3 over there. And at least 2 audiobooks. Or is it 3? Wow. That hurts. So, not much to talk about yet. And I have to finish a book. So, I need to get off of here and go do my bookness. So, I'll see you Monday with something. Because something, and maybe by then my days of the week will be straightened out. That would be nice.